Hey, everybody, welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and in today's episode, I'm going to dive into toxic positivity, what it is, why it can be bad, all of that good stuff. If you listen to my show regularly, you might have recalled when I had my therapy session recently, that was something that the therapist mentioned is like, hey, you might want to look at toxic positivity. You might find it interesting, do some research. And upon doing research, I read a lot of things that actually ring to me as being very true and applying to me. So let me pull it up right here and let you know what I see for toxic positivity. Here it is. Okay, so let me open up a couple of different articles. I'm going to read through what it says here. So toxic positivity, according to this one site here, here's where they start off by saying, have you ever pretended to be happy when you're not? Scrolled through Instagram and seen nothing but happy faces, picturesque scenes, and ideal lifestyles, or seen a friend post a holiday picture when you know full well they were home at stressed or anxious over something. In a nutshell, that is toxic positivity and it's ruining our lives. So basically, this site defines toxic positivity, and this is actually called the tab.com, the tab.com, just to give them credit. And it says here that toxic positivity is the culture of portraying yourself as being happy no matter what. You're basically switched off to anything which might be viewed as negative. It's also the idea of encouraging people to always see the bright side and not open up to anything bad. So I'm guilty of that because sometimes I'm so good at being positive and just positive vibes only that I ignore emotion. I've found that while I'm loving and friendly and I love having conversations, sometimes I can say things that are kind of cold, or I feel like I'm kind of cold. Like I would miss my family members and stuff if something happened. And I know I say that, knock on wood. I hope everything's good and everyone dies at a nice old age in their bed. But I feel like maybe I'd be so good at compartmentalizing or being in denial that I would still get my workout in the next day. Like I would really try to just keep my routine and hold it together as long as I could. That's what I would think, but I mean, I don't know. And let me go through here. Okay, a couple other quotes that the article mentions. Good vibes only. You'll be fine. It's nothing. Just smile. Sounds like what I do a lot. So a lot of us are guilty of it or we've experienced it before. And one girl here that they quote says, I feel like because I put out such positive version of myself that is so like happy and carefree, people often think that's who I am and that I can take anything because I'm happy and funny and confident. But also I feel like I have no allowances to be down or quiet or the person who doesn't talk as much or doesn't come out because of the toxic positivity that I feel like I have to stick to. It's a personality I've carved out for myself, and now other people see me as that, and to some extent I am that person, but I feel boxed in when I'm not. Interesting. I don't really think about it that much. I don't know. I never think about stuff. I just do stuff, and only now that I'm going and talking to this therapist / coach, am I starting to question, like, why do I do that? And what's the thought process behind it? So let me look at more stuff through here. So why is it a problem? It's a problem because sitting on your issues and ignoring them is never a good thing. It makes them escalate and you never address what makes you unhappy. A study has found that accepting and not rejecting our negative emotions actually helps us better diffuse them and leads to fewer negative emotions over time. This in turn causes better overall psychological health. Interesting. That makes sense. I mean, the ostrich approach, people talk about that sometimes, right? When you put your head in the sand and you just hope that your problems are going to go away. I've been guilty of that sometimes where I'm like, no worries. I'm going to figure it out. It's all going to be okay. And yeah, so that's something that I need to pay attention to. Now, here's another website called the psychologygroup.com/toxic-positivity. And here it says the title is a good title. It says the dark side of positive vibes. Relevant. And so they start off by saying they're not negative Nancy's, which is great because there's always that fine line of people who are trying to do like the positive images and they want to like justify. In my mind, I feel like they're trying to justify weakness and being, unhealthy, out of shape, those types of things. But I guess it's normal for people to have different feelings. And I need to realize that not everyone is overly positive and optimistic all the time. And that there are people who have rainy days and dark seasons and stuff like that. So let me see here. what this article says. So this article defines toxic positivity as the excessive and ineffective overgeneralization of a happy, optimistic state across all situations. The process of toxic positivity results in the denial, minimization, and invalidation of the authentic human emotional experience. Guilty, definitely guilty. So here's a couple of signs based on this article that you might be expressing toxic positivity. First, hiding or masking your true feelings. Second, trying to just get on with it by stuffing or dismissing an emotion. Third, feeling guilty for feeling what you feel. Fourth, minimizing other people's experiences with feel-good quotes or statements. Fifth, trying to give someone perspective like it could be worse instead of validating their emotional experience. Sixth, shaming or chastising others for expressing frustration or anything other than positivity. And then seventh, brushing off things that are bothering you with it is what it is. So, I mean, I can see pros and cons for this, right? Because I hate when people play the victim. If you're being the victim and you're like complaining about stuff and you're crying about things, if you just look at it from a third person view, a lot of the things that we complain about and that we're upset about are really irrelevant and very small on the large scale of things. And if we just shift the way we look at things, sometimes things that are a problem that we're sad about, we'll realize that we should be grateful for that, whatever it is that's happening for us. So here it talks about shame, suppressing emotions, isolation and other relational problems. So, okay, examples of non-toxic and accepting statements. So non-toxic acceptance and validation, describe what you're feeling. I'm listening. The toxic positivity counterpart is don't think about it, stay positive. Now, the non-toxic acceptance and validation, failure is a part of growth and success. Toxic positivity, failure is not an option. So I don't know how I feel about this still. I feel like there's got to be a fine balance and mix of everything. And here's what the conclusion of this article says. It says that being a healthy human being involves being conscious of ourselves and how we show up in the world. If you recognize yourself as a transmitter of toxic positivity, it's time to cut it out. You're hurting yourself and the people you care about most by insisting on this monochromatic mindset. So instead of practicing toxic positivity, aim for balance and the acceptance of both good and bad emotions rather than all or nothing thinking. So I think that's fair. I don't know. Maybe I'm just in denial. I feel like I'm so overly positive. Even when I'm stressed, I just work more and I push through it and things get better, right? The harder I work, the luckier I get type of thing. And you get more lucky breaks when you show up more and you hit more home runs, the more swings you take, all those different examples. So I think it's a balance, right? I'll be more conscientious and try not to downplay things. Like if someone's having a hard time, someone's having a bad day, maybe I won't be like, hey, look at the bright side, or it could be worse. I probably need to actually acknowledge it and say, hey, I understand things are tough for you right now. I'm sorry you're going through this, and I need to kind of level with them. And then give a little bit of positivity and motivation, not overly positive and crazy unrealistic, but like a little bit, like, pat on the back. I'm going to be here for you and I hope everything works out. And if you need anything, I'm here, that type of thing, right? So I'll work on being more of a supportive person instead of just throwing toxic positivity and barfing that all over to people and downplaying their feelings when they're feeling sad or upset or frustrated. So that is how I will work on it to improve. That is what toxic positivity is. If you're interested, I would suggest doing a little more research. If you're like me and you're just overly positive and optimistic. It's funny though, because I know there are other people out there like me that are super optimistic, always go-getters. They never complain about everything. They're always happy. They're always smiling. And we get along really well because we can all just feed off of each other's energy of positivity and excitement. But of course, that can be sometimes draining for those who are more mellow to themselves, maybe even like the extrovert introvert thing. I feel like a lot of extrovert people are like, hey, everything's awesome, let's be best friends. And a lot of introverted people may be more like reserved and, hey, I'm not going to really talk to people unless they talk to me. And I don't know. It's a mix. I've found that I've become more introverted, I guess, with the quarantine and everything. I actually find that I like keeping to myself and having that quiet time, because for so long I kind of fed off of networking events and getting lunch with friends and coffee and going to the gym and hanging out and having friends everywhere, right? You just hear to my voice that I just super social, parties, let's get together, awesome. Let's have a mastermind group, 10 people, let's meet up and talk for 4 hours. Other people may not find that as fun or may find it draining. So it's always up to where you're at, what makes you comfortable. But also I would suggest to stretch yourself, because you've got to be a little social. And if you're being too social, maybe spend a little more time learning about yourself and figuring yourself out. So always have some kind of balance in life. But with that being said, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Subscribe and leave a podcast review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening to this on the podcast platform. And make sure to go get my free guide on productivity hacks if you have not already, chrisbello.com/free. Thanks so much for your time and for listening and for being here today. And I'll talk to you soon. See ya.